No, we're just really pleased with the turnout. We're glad you all could make it, and we hope that you enjoy the presentation today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let us introduce for you Paul Knudsen. He's going to be our moderator for this afternoon. Paul is the founding member of the Northwestern University Veterans Association. So, Paul, on to you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. First of all, we're really, really pleased with the turnout here. We couldn't be happier, and so I really thank everybody for coming out. First and foremost, it really speaks to it speaks to the level of interest and the general dedication to the cause. And so for that, I truly thank each one of you and everybody here on the panel. So I just want to start by first of all making a couple of comments about why we're here and the Valuing Veterans Pledge. So in August of 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" So as we discuss ways to better understand the value of veterans and to improve the level of veteran friendliness here at Northwestern University, let us do so in the spirit of service. For it is the selfless service that characterizes the actions of our nation's service members. And it will be selfless service of our community that will ensure the successful outcomes of our veterans as they transition from the battlefield into the classroom and beyond. So during this discussion, we'd like to discuss the Valuing Veterans Pledge, and you can see that up here. And our president, President Shapiro, Morton Shapiro, signed it in September 27th, in fact. I remember that because, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's one of my kids' birthdays, right? And the pledge touches on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is a commitment to enhance the student-veteran outreach and recognition. We've seen this evolve this year with the creation, as was already mentioned, of Northwestern University Veterans Association. And it's alongside the already established Kellogg's Veteran Association. Second pillar is providing transition services. This may involve fostering partnerships with the local VA facility, CAPS, NU's career services, and different veteran service organizations. And I'd like to mention the many different organizations that are represented here amongst you, who we're looking to partner with in order to fulfill that mission of transition services. The last pillar is establishing support policies and procedures, and involves benchmarking with other universities and similar programs. So now, without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our esteemed panelists, whom I would like to thank very much for taking some time out of your very busy schedules. I understand all of you are fully engaged in your academics and your work and your personal studies and your personal lives, and the fact that you all took some time out of your schedule to come here and do this, it speaks highly of you and the organization which you represent. So from my immediate right here, we have Dr. Gad Allen, who is a professor at the Kellogg School of Management and a veteran of the Israeli Army. We have Mr. Rodrigo Garcia, who is, among many things, the chairman of the board of the Student Veterans of America. He's also the assistant director for the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, and most importantly, a student here at Northwestern in the Master's of Public Policy and Administration program, and a member of Northwestern University Veterans Association by default. Dr. Don Catherall is a professor of clinical psychiatry and behavioral sciences, and a veteran of the Vietnam War and a proud U.S. Marine. And Professor Peter Slevin, Professor Peter Slevin is a veteran national and international reporter, reporting on stories focusing on politics at home and abroad on the Iraq and Afghan wars. And so we appreciate his outsider's perspective, having had many encounters with our community, with the veterans. So what I'd like to do now is to ask each of the panelists to give us a little bit of a broader background on their, I mean, that's who they are, but I'd like to hear just very briefly, a little more about who you are, your veteran experience, your experience with veterans, and why you're here today. So, Doc, if we'd start.
Yeah. So again, my name is Guy Dalon. I'm a faculty at the Kellogg School of Management. Teach operations and operation management, operation strategy, and also decision making under uncertainty. We'll come back later on. As Paul said, I'm from Israel, so I served in the Israeli military. So I'm a little bit fish out of water here, so to speak. Now, I'll tell you about in a second of what I've done there, but most of the Israelis immediately after high school go to the military. I actually was from a small group that were doing it the other way around. I went first to school and was supposed to be in basically do what I learned. I learned to be an engineer, so I was supposed to be an engineer, but I decided to go to a combat unit, and was an officer in a reconnaissance patrol unit, basically a ranger, for 4 years. First of all, a soldier, because in Israel you don't start as an officer. Soldier, then a platoon commander, then company commander, for overall 4 years, and then decided to go back to school, went to Columbia, and then came here to Kellogg. What I've done since was that, first of all, we have quite a bit, as I'll talk about later on. At Kellogg, I think we have a very tight relationship with the veterans. And as one of the main things we try to look at Kellogg is for classroom diversity. That's probably one of the main things for any business school, is we do value the classroom experience and the classroom diversity. And so veterans, I think we have a very good relationship, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. But one of the things we also do is work with so I had an experience, for example, working with the FBI, in which I actually managed to bring my experience from the Israeli military, discussing the Yom Kippur War, and discussing the 73 War, in which sort of was an interesting collaboration between an Iraqi professor, me, and the top 200 people in the FBI, from the director to the people in charge. Many of them came from the Marines, came from the Army. A very interesting experience that I think valued the fact that each one of us came from a very different background. So I think while I do feel a little bit like, as I said, from fish out of water, because that's a very different experience than what I have, the experience that you're in. A pledge like that is almost like unnecessary in my country, and then I'll talk about it later on. But still, I think the shared experience and the shared language and the common values that actually brought me, for example, to go into a combat unit and not to try to do what I've done, I think basically speaks to many of the things Paul mentioned.
Thank you. Rodrigo?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Garcia, and I feel like I'm in a mini reunion. I know so many of your faces here in the crowd already. But I am, like Paul mentioned, I have various hats, and I stem here from the city of Chicago on the south side. I grew up here, born and bred, and I didn't, the only time I've left my beloved city is when I went off into the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, I served 5 years and did deployments overseas to both Iraq and Afghanistan. Upon my return, the transition was not the most easiest of sorts. And I can tell you that in 2006, I was actually working minimum wage at a Pizza Hut, and that's what I had to do to put food on the table. There's no disgrace about that employment, but it's just to tell you. I'm just trying to frame the context of the conversation that we're about to have. That there are different barriers that we face, and we overcome them in different sorts. Luckily for me, when I finished my undergrad, because I was enlisted. Once I finished my undergrad, I guess I must have done good, because from there I went to Morgan Stanley and started doing great things at that financial firm. Consequently to that, I started pursuing my MBA, not from Northwestern, unfortunately, and I started pursuing my MBA, and at the same time started working at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and overseeing financial institutions throughout the Midwest. Especially during the low, when many of when our banking industry was a bit of I guess they were stuck, and I would just say that I don't want to go into commentary, but throughout all that time, From the point where I started seeing that the transition was a bit difficult, I became involved. I became involved in with many with school-based organizations, just like as Paul was alluding to here at Northwestern. Well, I did that the same thing in my undergrad, and then from there I started kind of galvanizing some of the fellow student veterans in the Chicago area, then the state of Illinois, then across the Midwest, and then nationwide. And so I've been very involved in many veteran advocacy efforts, as well as many Hispanic advocacy efforts. And because of that, we were able to push much needed legislation, both here in the state of Illinois, the Higher Education Veterans Act of 2009. If you don't, well, it doesn't necessarily apply to Northwestern, but it does to many public institutions, and many of it, they have their own comments, and they can always blame me. And we were also very instrumental in the passage of the post 9/11 GI Bill, that is Student Veterans of America, which was did a great heated battle, but we were able to pass that bill, which has been a instrumental landmark legislation to provide much needed educational assistance to our returning servicemen and women. And because of that, about a year and a half ago, I was asked by the governor to come on to help run the Illinois Department of Veteran Affairs, of which is so I was appointed and confirmed by the Senate about a year and 4 months ago, and in that endeavor, not